So for boys, when we talk about creating connection, the major way to create a connection is through that physical aggression. They need that physical aggressive outlet. So dads and even moms need to get in there and be having, tickle fights, and, wrestling around is really in essence so important, because that's how boys stay connected. And I think there's a lot of mess between, moms and sons. Sons are going to come along and they're going to kind of plop in the lap, and with the boys at the group home, I mean, we've got, some of them at 6'3" that just kind of plop in your lap on a consistent basis.
Sure.
But they need that play and that wrestling around. So for moms that are really kind of interacting and they're giving them that loving space and that tender time, I think that it's also important for moms to kind of get in there and be able to play wrestle and create some of that for boys as well.
Absolutely. I think that it's really important when you talk about that sister hormone, vasopressin, because that has it's more predominant in boys, and it's also the protection hormone. So it's a positive hormone, and it's a connection hormone, but it's also one that drives the young boys to be territorial. And I remember when we were in elementary school, it'd be the gang of boys, and then a new kid would come in, and we'd all want to be tough and kind of be territorial until the new kid kind of fit in and assimilated into the group. So it's that vasopressin that's kind of present at that age that kind of triggers that need to be protective. Let me see if Lisa had a question. There's a Lisa Doan. I'm going to unmute your line and see if you had a question. Lisa, do you have a question? Okay, maybe not. All right, knock those hands down again. All right, excellent. Anything else you want to add to that, Helene?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, good. You got a couple of little things that just popped up there. Result number 1, you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I think I went through all of that. Yeah, I did go through all of that.
Okay, good deal. All right. There it is. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the things that Susan mentions in the Chemistry of Connection. It's like I said, it's a great layperson's book. You can get it at postinstitute.com. David might still be offering the interview I did with Susan where we talked about it. That comes with the book. I'm not sure if he still is attaching it to the book or not. But number 1, you offer a sweet kiss, you share a warm hug, you cuddle, you make love, you have an orgasm, sing in a choir, give someone a neck rub, hold a baby, stroke a dog or cat, perform a generous act, prayer, root for your team. But, there's so many things, just simple things that we can do. But if you look at every one of these things, what is essential here is you've got to be able to interrupt your stress enough to be in relationship. You've got to be able to interrupt your stress enough to calm down, to sit down, to perform a generous act, and to perform, just say, for instance, perform a generous act. It just requires the momentary consciousness to say, here, let me hold that door for you, or to stroke a dog or a cat. How many times have I sat down and been stressed out and tired at the end of the day, my little cat, Woody, jumps up on me, and I'm petting him for a few minutes, and I'm like, Woody, you got to get down, because, he's like moving around. But then if I'll take a couple of deep breaths, and I can have him get back up on my lap, and I can stroke him, and I can actually be present and give in to that experience and that soothing and that oxytocin, because oxytocin is not easy if you just don't have it, if you're just not innately built for it. I mean, it can be painful to smile. It can be painful to give a hug. But see, that's the thing, is that it's always possible to learn how to trigger oxytocin. And then there's more. These are the ones I really like. Make eye contact. I mean, I really got this as it relates to the kids, my boys in the group home. When they'd be talking to me and I would look at them, and as I would look at them, I would just have loving intentions and thoughts in my mind. I would just hold that loving intention. And I know it would change the look of my eyes, or I just look at them and I see their innocence. And I would just listen to them. I do that to my daughter, my 15-year-old, all the time because, you know, she's always giving me this attitude about something. And I look at her, and I see the little girl. When I see the little girl, I know it changes the vibration that I'm sending her. And then that shifts everything. Breathing. This is so important. You breathe. The moment you take a deep breath, and you inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, the moment you take a deep breath, you're turning on oxytocin. That's what's calming your stress. Herbert Benson in the 70s wrote about the relaxation response, which is essentially breathing. When you breathe, you're turning on oxytocin. Practicing mindfulness, slowing down, paying attention to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, you know, your movement, you know, being mindful in a moment, you know, that I'm really listening without judgment. And this is really hard for us as parents sometimes. We're listening to our kids. You know, we want to pass these judgments. We want to give them this feedback or that feedback. But rather than do any of that, suspend that judgment and just listen. Just listen and take in and observe and appreciate. And even if you don't like what you're hearing, just suspend that judgment for a moment and wait. And if you can suspend judgment, a lot of times your child will come back to you with, well, what do you think? Why don't you have anything to say? Or I know you've got an opinion about it, but they only come back to that if you listen and suspend that judgment. Positive touch, you know, a hug, holding hands, a pat on the head. I said earlier that a lot of children who have early trauma histories have sensory integration issues. You have to learn what touch your child likes. Do they like a back scratch? Do they like a little real deep massage on their back, a firm touch? Maybe they don't like any movement at all. Maybe they like raking on their arms or on their back. They want you to rake up and down their back. You know, you learn what that positive touch is. What is that? What's the touch that you prefer? What do you like? I mean, sometimes I like a good, just like deep in my muscle pressure. Other times I like a scratch. You know, it can vary. Proximity, being close, especially with parents who have teens who are challenging. Sometimes just being close is the best place to start. Just being present. I mean, at midnight 30 tonight, I'm going to a movie with my daughter. Why am I doing that? Would I rather be sleeping? Absolutely. But can I get that quality, positive time with her? That, you know, who's going to be? No one's going to be. Just her and I. It's proximity. We're going to be close together. We're going to be connected. It's going to be wonderful. And, you know, I can sacrifice 2 hours worth of sleep in order to be able to do that. And then play, wrestle, laugh, dance. These are beautiful things. Alan Shore talks about the importance of joy and attachment. He says it's the other pathway. It's the other highway of attachment. You talk about attachment and bonding. We talk about attachment and bonding all the time, and we always look at it as these very specific things you got to be doing and these very specific ways you got to be with your kids. It can be just laughter. It can be just playing, and like Helene said, boys need to wrestle. Every boy that we've ever had in our group home has come into that home without knowing what it means to wrestle with a man. And, I mean, there are times I would have all of them on top of me, or I'd be on top of all of them, and we'd just be having this free-for-all, you know, wrestling and getting connected, and there's all that touch, and there's all that sensory activation that goes into that. And you have children with sexual abuse histories. Those children need to be wrestled more than any child. They need to have that experience of healthy physical interaction and affection, and to know it doesn't have to lead to anything else. And what if they start acting out sexually? What do? You calm yourself down, you slow down the pace, and you say, well, that's not what we're doing. We're not going to do that. You know, number one, I'm your dad. I'm somewhere here to take care of you. I'm not someone who's going to have sex with you. You know, that's just not something that's going to happen here. And so then you're able to redirect it. See, that's a wonderful teaching mechanism. Laughter, and then dancing. I mean, there's nothing more important than those things alone. And then thinking loving thoughts. I want to challenge every single one of you tonight when you get off this presentation. Your children may be asleep. And you can do it right now. It's to think loving thoughts about your children, about your partner, about your spouse. You know, think loving thoughts. That has an impact. A thought is a vibration. That vibration gets emitted and it gets picked up by everyone directly around you and even indirectly around you. You know, it's the butterfly effect. The single swoop of a butterfly's wing in San Francisco affects wind velocity in China, in Tokyo. You know, it's that powerful. That's the power of vibration. So just to think a loving thought is to send a powerful vibration. And to smile. You know, try to catch yourself frowning and turn that frown to a smile. You know, very simple things that you can do to emit oxytocin. I have a question here that just popped up. It says, I read a study not too long ago regarding boys and maternal attachment. When early bonding and attachment are compromised, let me see if I can pull this whole question up. Let's see. Shoot, how do I do it? Okay. Regarding boys and maternal attachment, when early bonding and attachment are compromised and vasopressin is suppressed or not activated, future monogamy becomes challenging. It becomes more challenging to maintain long-lasting feelings of love, response to vasopressin, thus leading to compulsive novelty seeking to replicate, activate the feelings of love. My 15-year-old used to be so close and connected, but now he shuns touch from me, but his mom. I think it freaks him out to be close to his mom. This comes from Stacy. Thank you, Stacy. Stacy's always, that part didn't come from Stacy. That part came from someone else. But thank you, Stacy, for that. That's so powerful. And I want to read that again because I mean that's like amazing. I'm just trying to figure out how to get this bigger. Okay, so let's read that again. The study not too long ago regarding boys and a maternal attachment when early bonding and attachment are compromised. This is very important because it reminds me of a parent who's got a teenager who she feels like he's got some sexual addiction going on. And vasopressin is suppressed or not activated, future monogamy becomes challenging. It's very important because vasopressin is the protection hormone. It's the sister hormone to oxytocin. So if that's been suppressed early between the mother and the young man, that's going to become challenging. It becomes more challenging to maintain long-lasting feelings of love, response to vasopressin, thus leading to compulsive novelty seeking to replicate, activate the feelings of love. That's very important. That's great. Thank you for that, Stacy. And then the other statement is, my 15-year-old used to be so close and connected, but now he shuns touch from me. I think it freaks him out to be too close to mom. You know, at some level, it probably does. But also, you have that developmental stage that a 15-year-old boy is going through, where he's confused, and this is like the great adolescent conflict. And I love this conflict actually, because it's like the terrible twos and the terrible teens. There's a very simple way to overcome both of them. Stop thinking the child has to have all this independence and foster as much dependence as the child is willing to permit you. So if the child asks you to do something which seems to be more dependent, do it for them because they are moving into their independence. So with teens, a lot of times we have to bring them closer rather than letting them move away further, you know. And I think about, you know, just like my 15-year-old wanting to go to the movie tonight. She could want to go to the movie with 5 of her friends. She could want me to go and take them and drop them off and leave them at the movie, but she didn't want to do that. She wants to go with me. Now, I think 12:30 at night, I don't want to go to a freaking movie at midnight. You know, I want to sleep. I want to get up so I can write and be a workaholic like I have a tendency to be. But then I think, she's asking me to go. Her father, what better investment of my time and energy is there? So don't just give in to that. Continue to hug him and continue to give him affection and continue to do all those things that he really, really does need.